My name is Adrienne Whitfield. I'm 36 years old. And by the time my sister raised her champagne glass at Christmas dinner, I already knew she was about to make me the evening's entertainment. Still single at 36, she said, loud enough for every cousin, spouse, and family friend at the table to hear. Must be rough spending the holidays alone. The laughter came fast. My mother laughed too, then waved a hand like humiliation stops counting the moment someone calls it a joke. She's only teasing, my mother said. Don't worry about him. I set my glass down. I've been married for a while now, I said. My mother froze mid-toast. My sister's smile fell apart. My father looked at me like he'd missed an entire chapter of his own family without noticing. Someone asked who my wife was. I looked at the glossy redevelopment binder sitting next to my mother's plate, the one my family had spent 6 months building for a private investor they were counting on to save the business. You already know her name, I said. You've been begging for a meeting with her since June. Nobody laughed this time. My sister reached for the binder, but I got my hand on it first. There was something else none of them knew yet. That document had my work in it, my credentials, and a signature I had never given anyone permission to use. By the end of that night, my family would find out who I'd married, why I'd kept it from them, and exactly what their favorite daughter had risked just to look successful. Before I tell you what my wife said, and what happened after I walked out that door, tell me where you're watching this from tonight, and what time it is where you are. I want to see how far this one travels. My family ran Whitfield and Marsh Heritage Builders, a 3-generation firm out of Providence that restored old theaters, libraries, train halls, and civic buildings. By that Christmas, the company still looked impressive from the outside, but underneath the glossy photos were overdue invoices, expensive short-term loans, and a leadership team that preferred appearances to hard conversations. My father, Edmund Whitfield, understood old buildings down to the bones but couldn't stand confrontation. My mother, Lorraine, ran client relations and treated every family problem like a press issue to be managed. My older sister, Bianca Whitfield Cole, was creative director, the golden child who could turn charm into authority even when someone else had done the actual work. I grew up as the dependable one, the kid who checked the numbers and solved the emergencies and got forgotten the second the crisis passed. I never joined the family firm. I became a heritage daylighting and glazing engineer, the specialist you call in when a restored atrium turns into a greenhouse by July or a stained glass rotunda blinds half the room every afternoon. My work meant physics, historic glass chemistry, thermal modeling, and long nights inside empty buildings tracking a glare or a heat problem nobody else could pin down. My mother called it window fussing. Bianca told people I adjusted blinds for a living. They mocked the work right up until they needed my contacts, my reports, or an introduction to a preservation board. When I helped, Bianca told people I was supporting her vision. When I said no to unpaid work, my mother reminded me that family loyalty shouldn't come with conditions attached. I met Samira 3 years earlier, during the restoration of the old Kestrel Freight Depot, an abandoned 1920s rail terminal outside Hartford. Sam was a structural engineer and founder of Ferreira Civic Renewal, a redevelopment firm known for rescuing projects everyone else had written off. Our first real conversation was an argument about whether the original steel skylight trusses could bear a new glass load without buckling. She showed up the next morning with revised calculations and 2 coffees. I showed up with a scale model proving we were both partly wrong. That became our rhythm: challenge, evidence, adjustment, respect. I told my family almost nothing about her because they treated private information like something they were entitled to share. Bianca had once gone through messages on my unlocked phone and repeated details of a breakup at Thanksgiving like it was gossip she'd earned. My mother defended her with the exact same phrase she used at Christmas. She was only teasing. Another time my mother invited someone I was seeing to a fundraiser without asking me first, seated her next to a donor's son all evening, and spent the whole dinner talking about how well-matched they looked. When I said something, I was told I was being sensitive. Those moments taught me that the people who mock your boundaries are usually the first ones who resent you the moment those boundaries become real. Sam understood, because she'd lived through something similar, a former business partner who'd weaponized her personal life during a city deal years earlier. She kept her home life separate from work on principle. We dated quietly, cooked dinner after long site visits, spent Sunday mornings wandering architectural salvage yards. She met my closest friend, Priya Nandan. I met her brother, Teo. Nobody ever had to perform for either of us. 18 months before that Christmas, we got married in the reading room of a small municipal archive Sam had helped save from demolition. 11 guests, a lemon cake from a bakery 2 blocks from my apartment, 0 family politics. I wore my ring on a chain during site inspections, since metal jewelry isn't safe around certain equipment. Over time, the chain just became a habit, and nobody in my family ever noticed. I'd thought about telling them. Every attempt died under another joke about marrying late, another request for free consulting, another reminder that Bianca's milestones simply mattered more than mine. Sam never pushed me. Tell them when hiding it costs you more than telling them will, she said. By that Christmas, hiding it had started costing more. Whitfield and Marsh had begun chasing the Ashcombe Exchange project, an old freight terminal slated to become a market hall and vocational campus. Ferreira Civic Renewal was the only serious investor still at the table. My family had no idea Sam was my wife. They also had no idea I'd already seen their investment proposal and recognized entire pages of my own confidential analysis sitting inside it. After I said it out loud, the table went quiet enough that I could hear ice shifting in someone's glass. A cousin near the far end slowly lowered his phone, probably realizing the family joke he'd been filming had just turned into something else entirely. My sister recovered first. Very dramatic, Adrian, she said, forcing a laugh nobody joined. Who is she? My mother lowered her champagne but stayed frozen mid-toast. My father looked from me down to the gold lettering on the binder beside his plate, Ferreira Civic Renewal, Ashcombe Exchange Partnership Review. Samira Ferreira, I said. We got married 18 months ago. My brother-in-law Derek stopped chewing entirely. Bianca's fingers tightened around the stem of her glass. That's not possible, she said. I unlocked my phone, pulled up the wedding photo from my private album, and set it in the middle of the table. Sam and I standing in the reading room of that restored archive, afternoon light crossing the old oak floor behind us. She wore a dark green suit with no tie. I wore a plain navy jacket and the look of someone who'd finally made a decision without waiting for the family to sign off on it. 11 people had been in that room. None of them shared my last name. My father picked up the phone carefully, like the picture might vanish if he moved too fast. My mother leaned in, her expression moving through disbelief, hurt, quick calculation, and finally recognition. Bianca barely glanced at the photo. Her eyes went straight to the binder under my hand. Does she know about Ashcombe? She asked. Not are you happy? Not why didn't you tell us? The first question out of her mouth was about the deal. She knows exactly what your company submitted, I said. What have you told her about us? That should worry you a lot less than what you told her about me, I said, and opened the binder to page 14. The daylighting feasibility summary was mine. So were the thermal load projections, the glare mapping diagrams, the glazing material schedule for the terminal's proposed atrium hall. I'd prepared the original report 2 years earlier for a non-profit arts coalition that had considered leasing part of the building. The project died when a grant fell through, but the research stayed protected under my consulting agreement. Every page marked confidential. I'd shared one preliminary copy with my father after he'd asked whether the depot could realistically hold public events without gutting the entire interior. He'd promised he only wanted to understand the technical risk. Now my work had been folded straight into Whitfield and Marsh's investor package, copyright footers stripped off entirely. My name sat under a heading that read Senior Technical Partner, followed by a line claiming I'd agreed to serve as the company's lead daylighting advisor for the whole redevelopment. I had never agreed to anything. Underneath that line was a digital signature close enough to mine to fool anyone moving fast through 200 pages. My father pulled the binder toward himself. "Lorraine, what is this?" My mother didn't answer him. She looked straight at my sister. Derek wiped his mouth and said he'd been told I had reviewed and signed off on the whole package. "It was a working draft," Bianca said. "Nothing was final." "You submitted it to an investment committee," I said. "That makes it a lot more than a draft." "Adrian has helped the company before," my mother told the table, like past generosity came with permanent rights to my name. "He sent us recommendations, reviewed materials, made introductions. We had every reason to believe he'd support this." "Helping you before isn't lifelong consent," I said. "And support isn't a signature." My mother reached across the table. I slid the binder out of her reach. "Whatever happened, we can fix this privately," she said. "There's no reason your wife needs to make a multi-million-dollar call over a disagreement between siblings." Her hypocrisy was almost impressive. 5 minutes earlier she'd been laughing at the idea of me spending the holidays alone. Now my actual marriage had become a corporate liability I'd selfishly failed to disclose. "Sam isn't walking away because I'm upset," I said. Her compliance team found the inconsistencies before anyone even knew I was connected to her. My father frowned. "What inconsistencies?" "Revenue projections that don't match your tax filings. Subcontractor commitment letters from firms that deny ever sending them. A financing statement listing personal guarantors who never agreed to guarantee anything. And my forged signature." Derek's face changed the second I said guarantors. He asked which names were on the list. Bianca told him this wasn't the time or place. "Apparently Christmas dinner is the right place to discuss my marriage, but not the paperwork attached to your own house," he said. My mother hissed his name in warning. I kept going. "I found out about the proposal when Ferreira's general counsel called my office to verify my role. They didn't know I was Sam's husband. They knew I was the consultant whose copyrighted work had shown up in a submission from a company claiming I'd joined its technical team." Bianca pushed her chair back. "So you discussed our confidential finances with your wife behind our backs?" "No," I said. "Your company put my identity inside its confidential finances without asking me first." My phone buzzed on the table. Sam, calling because she knew I planned to confront them tonight and had asked me to text once I was safe. I answered. "You all right?" she asked. "I'm fine," I said. "They know we're married. They also know about the proposal." My mother instantly switched into the polished voice she used with donors and city officials. "Sam, this is Lorraine Whitfield. I believe there's been a serious misunderstanding." I looked at the phone. Sam heard the question in my silence and said, "Put me on speaker." I did. "Mrs. Whitfield," she said evenly, "a written claim was supported by falsified documentation." "That isn't a misunderstanding." My mother tried again. "Bianca may have moved too quickly, but Adrian has contributed informally for years. There was never any intention to mislead anyone." Bianca leaned toward the phone. "He has complicated feelings about the family business. I respect his expertise, but he isn't exactly objective where I'm concerned." "My husband's feelings didn't create the discrepancies in your submission," Sam said. "His professional integrity is the reason one of them got caught before it created bigger legal exposure for everyone involved." The word husband landed harder than the wedding photo had. It made the marriage real in a way my family couldn't wave off as a performance. My mother closed her eyes. My father looked down at my bare left hand, then noticed the thin chain under my collar. Bianca's face hardened. "Are you saying Ferreira is rejecting the proposal?" she asked. "Our investment committee will issue formal notice after the holiday," Sam said. Until then, neither Whitfield and Marsh nor anyone acting on its behalf may use Adrian's name, reports, credentials, or implied involvement. Preserve every draft and communication tied to the submission. Further questions go through counsel. Sam, my mother said quickly, before you decide anything that affects dozens of employees, maybe we could arrange a private family meeting. The employees are exactly why this has to go through proper review instead of family pressure, Sam said. Adrian, call me when you're clear to leave. I ended the call. Nobody spoke for several seconds. My mother stared at me like I'd personally written every false number in that binder. Adrian, she finally said, lowering her voice, you have to fix this. Not I'm sorry. Not how did this happen. Not we should never have laughed at you. Her instinct was the same one it had always been. Bianca creates the emergency, and I become the fix. I stood and reached for my coat. No, I said. For once, whoever made the mess can carry it themselves. Bianca stood too. You can't walk in here, reveal a secret wife, threaten the company, and leave like you're innocent in all this. I turned to face her. I didn't put Sam's name in your proposal. You did. I didn't attach my signature to a lie. You did. And I didn't turn my own marriage into a weapon tonight. You turned my supposed loneliness into a punchline, and the truth just happened to answer you back. The room had gone so quiet that even the people who'd laughed earlier wouldn't look at me. I opened the front door, then turned back toward my mother. You told me she was only teasing. Maybe tomorrow you can explain which part of that was funny. My mother followed me into the entryway. You cannot drop something like this and walk out. Your sister made a mistake. Families fix mistakes. Families also prevent them, I said. They don't laugh while one child humiliates another and then demand loyalty the second money's on the line. This isn't about the joke, she said. The joke was only ever the clearest summary of it. For years, Bianca's cruelty had been treated like a personality quirk the rest of us were supposed to manage around. When she borrowed something of mine, I was told not to be possessive. When she repeated something private, I was told not to be so secretive. When she introduced my own contacts as people she'd cultivated herself, I was told not to compete with my sister. Every boundary I set proved I was cold. Every boundary she crossed proved she was just outgoing. The worst of it happened 5 years earlier, when I redesigned the daylighting system for a children's museum wedged under an elevated highway ramp. I built a layered glazing system that killed the glare without forcing the nonprofit to gut the whole facade. Bianca saw the presentation during a family weekend. 3 months later, Whitfield and Marsh entered a design award using my diagrams as proof of its own innovative process. My name was removed. Her team took the credit. I found out when the award committee invited me to serve as a juror. My mother begged me not to report it because public embarrassment could cost employees their jobs. My father promised it would be pulled. Bianca cried, called the diagrams placeholders, accused me of enjoying her humiliation. I agreed not to file a complaint. 2 weeks later, my mother told relatives I'd nearly destroyed the company over a formatting error. That's when I stopped mistaking piece for repair. Sam knew that whole history before we got married. She'd watched Bianca send me a 40-page bid package at midnight with the message, "You're the genius. Make this look credible by morning." She never told me to cut them off. She just asked, what would contact with them look like if guilt wasn't the one making the rules? The answer turned out to be limited information, written agreements, and no access to my marriage until they could actually respect it. I didn't hide Sam because she was important. I hid us because our relationship was the one part of my life they'd never been allowed to rename, compare, or borrow. My mother crossed her arms. You excluded us from your own wedding. Yes, I said, and the flat answer seemed to catch her off guard. I invited people who could be happy for me without turning the day into a competition, a client list, or a family negotiation. Behind the door, Bianca was blaming Derek for approving the proposal. Derek insisted he'd relied on her word. My father asked them both to stop. My mother lowered her voice. Ferreira was our last option. The bank gave us until January 15th to show new capital. If this deal disappears, we could lose the project and the showroom both. For half a second, old habit kicked in. I pictured myself reviewing the debt, calling Sam, building a rescue plan. That was always the role they wanted from me, invisible right up until competence became useful. Did Bianca know the deadline when she signed my name? I asked. My mother looked away. The door opened. My father stepped into the hallway holding a manila folder full of lender notices, payroll warnings, and a draft list of personal guarantors. My name was on it, listed as a family principal with substantial outside income, despite never once owning a share of Whitfield and Marsh. A sticky note beside it read, "Adrian will come around once Sam's committed." That was only planning, my mother said. My father pulled the folder away from her. "Lorraine, stop." Then he looked at me. I didn't approve this. I should have known. I should have asked. Bianca appeared in the doorway. "What do you want, Adrian? My resignation? Should I kneel?" "I want you to stop asking what performance will make the consequences disappear," I said. She laughed, bitter. "You finally get the powerful wife and the perfect career. You get to stand above all of us now." And there it was, the resentment underneath every joke for years. Never worried I was alone. Terrified I wasn't. "I never needed to stand above you," I said. "I needed you to stop standing on me." Sam was waiting across the street, since we'd agreed I shouldn't drive if the confrontation got to be too much. I climbed into her car and handed her the folder. "How bad?" she asked. "Worse than the proposal?" She didn't tell me what to do. She just touched the chain under my collar and waited while I finally let myself shake. 3 days after Christmas, Ferreira Civic Renewal formally ended negotiations. The letter cited material misrepresentation, unauthorized use of a consultant's credentials, and weak internal financial controls. It never once mentioned our marriage. Sam insisted the record stay strictly professional, so nobody could wave the decision off as personal revenge. The facts alone did plenty of damage. The city suspended Whitfield and Marsh from the Ashcombe bid. The bank refused to extend the deadline. Subcontractors started demanding overdue payment, and Derek's father hired a lawyer after learning he'd invested based on Bianca's claim that the Ferreira deal was basically done. My father apologized without asking me for anything in return. My mother sent 14 messages, every one ending in a request. Bianca wrote exactly one line. "I hope you're enjoying this." On January 4th, my mother showed up at my office with a binder labeled Family Continuity Plan. It proposed that Sam buy 49% of Whitfield and Marsh, absorb part of the debt, and keep Bianca on as president of creative operations. I would join the board, provide 5 years of discounted technical services, and publicly call the forged signature an administrative misunderstanding. It wasn't a rescue plan. It moved all the risk onto me and Sam while keeping power exactly where it had always been, with the people who'd caused the crisis. "You said you wanted accountability," my mother said. "I told you that you could supervise Bianca from the board." "I don't want to supervise her," I said. "I want her to be responsible for herself. She's your sister. She's also the executive who submitted false information." My mother's composure cracked. 43 people depend on this company. Your grandfather started it with 2 employees and a borrowed truck. I understood the employee risk better than she gave me credit for, because I'd already reviewed the numbers with an independent restructuring attorney. Saving the workers didn't require saving Whitfield control. "There's one structure I'd support," I said. Whitfield and Marsh goes into court-supervised restructuring. The showroom sells. Employees get priority on unpaid wages. The restoration division goes to a qualified buyer or a worker cooperative. Dad can stay on as a technical advisor. Bianca resigns from management, issues a factual correction about my work, and repays the legal costs tied to the false submission. You and Dad drop any claim that I'm responsible for the company's debt. Ferreira can bid through an open process, but I won't influence the price. You want to strip our name off our own company, she said. I want the people who actually do the work to have a shot at keeping their jobs, I said. This is punishment. No, I said. Punishment would be using my marriage to destroy you. This is refusing to use it to protect you from choices that are already on the record. After she left, I cried alone in my office. Doing the right thing didn't feel triumphant. It felt like admitting the family I actually wanted wasn't the one making demands in my waiting room. Sam found me there and told me my mother had called her office too, claiming the marriage made me biased. Counsel had kept the voicemail. Part of me still wants to fix payroll, I admitted. Kindness doesn't require handing control back to the same people, she said. Together we worked out a lawful alternative. Ferreira wouldn't rescue Whitfield and Marsh, but it would help finance a regional employee-owned restoration cooperative, provided the assets sold transparently. Sam recused herself from the internal vote. I agreed to limited paid consulting only if the cooperative won through an open process, no secret leverage, no family discount, no erased consequences. When Bianca found out, she called. You're handing our company to strangers. The people in that cooperative have finished most of your projects for years, I said. You know what I mean, she said. Yes, I said. They're strangers because they don't share our last name, even though you risked their jobs to protect yours. She started crying and admitted the Christmas joke had been calculated. She'd heard I might be seeing someone important, but couldn't confirm who. Calling me single in front of everyone was meant to force either a denial or a reveal. You could have just asked if I was happy, I said. I didn't think you'd tell me, she said. You were right, I said. Then what was I supposed to do, she asked. Accept that access to me isn't something you get to force, I said. She admitted that making me look lonely had made her feel more successful by comparison, then asked whether resigning would make the investigation disappear. I told her the City Review and Ferreira's notice were built on records, not on my mood. She'd spent years treating every system like a relationship she could manage. Now the evidence was the one answering her. Before she hung up, Bianca said, You have no idea what it's like to fail in front of everyone. You made me fail in front of everyone every time you turned my life into a joke, I said. The difference is I learned how to keep living without needing to make someone else smaller to do it. Whitfield and Marsh filed for restructuring on January 12th. My father supported it after finding out Bianca and my mother had hidden 2 creditor notices from him. My mother called him disloyal. He told her that pretending was never loyalty. It was the most honest sentence I'd ever heard him say. The City Review found Bianca had submitted my altered signature from her own account and told a junior coordinator to strip my copyright footer off 2 diagrams. The coordinator had emails showing she'd questioned the order and been told I had verbally cleared everything. Bianca was barred from serving as a principal on municipal redevelopment contracts for 3 years. It didn't end her career, but it ended the version of it built on family protection and borrowed credibility. Derek moved out after learning she'd also understated personal guarantees tied to the company. I didn't celebrate that. Their marriage was never my battlefield. Still, the consequence mattered. Bianca had measured my whole life by whether someone stood next to me at family dinners. Now her own relationship couldn't survive the debt and dishonesty she'd hidden inside it. My mother told relatives that Sam had engineered a hostile takeover because I was holding onto some childhood grudge. That story fell apart the moment Ferreira declined to even bid on the showroom and backed the employee cooperative instead. Harborview Restoration Partners bought the equipment, the active contracts, the vehicles. 38 of 43 employees got offers. The rest received priority wage claims and placement help. The Whitfield name wasn't part of the deal. The morning workers took the brass letters down off the building. My father asked me to meet him across the street. He handed me a signed statement confirming I'd never been an owner, guarantor, or authorized representative of the company. He also gave me a personal letter, apologizing for every time he'd let my mother and Bianca turn me into a resource, for pressuring me to overlook the old award submission, for mistaking my silence for consent. I don't expect forgiveness on a schedule, he said. I just wanted the truth written down somewhere besides my own head. It was the first apology from my family that didn't come with instructions attached. I hugged him, but I didn't tell him everything was fine. We started meeting for breakfast once a month. He took a paid advisory role at Harborview and worked there without the family name doing any of the talking for him. My mother stayed quiet for 4 months, then showed up to a lecture I gave on daylighting accessibility in public buildings. Afterward, she waited until the room emptied out. I watched you for 40 minutes, she said. I realized I don't actually know what you do. You could learn, I said. She nodded. I also realized the way we talked about you made it easier not to notice you. That sentence mattered because it put the responsibility on the behavior that made ignoring me convenient. She asked to meet Sam as my wife instead of as an investor. I said not yet. She looked hurt, but accepted it. Boundaries only become real once they survive somebody else's disappointment. Bianca's first real apology came later. She sent a correction to the Regional Preservation Association, the city, Harborview, my attorney, and every former board member, admitting she'd used my diagrams without permission both in the old award submission and in the Ashcombe proposal. Plain language, no misunderstanding, no placeholder, no shared family material. Then, privately, she wrote, I kept thinking that if people saw you as lonely, they'd stop seeing me as less capable. I was wrong about what that did to you and what it made me. I don't expect you to trust me. I acknowledged the correction through my attorney. An apology can mean something without buying immediate access. Months later, I agreed to one conversation with Bianca in a therapist's office. She talked about taking an ethics course, doing contract work outside historic development, facing how often she'd turned envy into entitlement. Did you hide the marriage because you hated me? She asked. No, I said. I hid it because I loved my life enough to protect it. She cried quietly. I didn't rescue her from that feeling, and I didn't punish her with it either. I just let the truth stay in the room. Sam and my mother finally met that summer at the reopening of the Kestrel Freight Depot. My mother apologized for pulling her into family confusion. Sam answered gently. It wasn't confusion. Adrian was clear. You just didn't like the boundary. My mother looked at me, then nodded. That's true. It was a small admission, but it was one she'd been incapable of making at Christmas. 1 year after that dinner, Sam and I hosted 11 people in the same archive reading room where we'd gotten married. Priya brought the same lemon cake. Teo came with his kids. My father spent 20 minutes explaining the building's original steel trusses to anyone who'd listen. My mother joined us for dessert, after asking whether the invitation actually included her. It did. Bianca wasn't there. We'd gotten as far as occasional conversations, not holidays, and we both understood that trust gets built through repetition, not declared just because a year had gone by. Harborview Restoration Partners finished its first profitable quarter. The former Whitfield and Marsh craftspeople now held shares in the company they'd been quietly holding together for years. My father worked as a paid advisor with no vote. The Ashcombe contract went elsewhere, but Harborview won a smaller library restoration on its own merits. No family name opened that door. The work did. Bianca finished the city's ethics requirements and took a job coordinating vendor logistics for a trade show company. Less glamorous title, smaller paycheck, but the work was hers to measure. In therapy, she admitted starting over embarrassed her, until she noticed something she wasn't used to. When a project succeeded, she knew exactly which part of it was actually hers. Derek came back after months of counseling, though the marriage stayed fragile. I never asked for details. Privacy isn't suspicious just because it belongs to someone else. My mother changed the slowest. When relatives asked why they'd never known about my wedding, she first called me secretive. After I corrected her, she started saying Adrian didn't feel safe telling us. Eventually, she added, we gave him reasons not to. Accountability was never one dramatic apology. It was telling the truth over and over, even when the old story made her look better. My daylighting accessibility framework ended up in a national design guide, and I was chosen to lead the glazing strategy for a science museum inside a former aircraft hangar. At the launch, a reporter asked Sam how it felt being married to someone getting so much attention. She smiled. "Normal," she said. I was impressed by him before I knew his middle name. Then she stepped aside, so the next question came to me. She could stand next to me without ever standing in front of me. People sometimes ask if revealing my marriage was revenge. I didn't marry Sam to surprise my family. I didn't alter my own signature, strip a copyright footer, hide creditor notices, or make Bianca mock me at a table full of relatives. I told the truth at the exact moment they expected me to swallow one more lie about myself. Then I refused to spend my marriage, my expertise, or my reputation shielding them from what they'd chosen. The family company disappeared, but the people's work survived it. My father lost authority and got integrity back in its place. My mother lost the story she'd spent years protecting and started learning how to relate to people without managing appearances. Bianca lost her status and the certainty that someone else would always clean up behind her. I lost the fantasy that one perfect explanation could ever change people who'd built their comfort on misunderstanding me. On the anniversary of that dinner, my mother sent me a message. I laughed, because stopping Bianca would have meant admitting I encouraged the way she treated you. You deserved a mother who protected your dignity before she needed your help. I'm sorry. I thanked her for saying it plainly and told her trust would still take time. It wasn't a grand reunion. It was a door opened exactly as wide as I chose to open it. That evening I wore my ring on my hand instead of the chain around my neck. My father noticed first. My mother noticed second, and smiled without turning it into a speech. Sam touched my fingers under the table. I used to believe family peace meant preventing discomfort. Now I know peace built on one person's silence is only ever convenience for everyone else. Love doesn't require unlimited access. Forgiveness doesn't erase accountability. A joke that keeps landing on the same wound isn't humor, it's a test of how much disrespect the room will allow. When I remember my sister asking if it was hard spending the holidays alone, I don't remember the laughter first anymore. I remember the quiet after I set my glass down. I've been married for a while, I told them. But what I was really saying was this: I've had a full life for a long time. You just never looked closely enough to notice it. And if someone you love keeps shrinking your life down into a punchline, ask yourself honestly, are you protecting the relationship or the version of you that makes the relationship easy for them? Sometimes the strongest kind of revenge is simply refusing to stay available for disrespect, building a life nobody gets to borrow without asking, and letting the truth quietly collect every consequence you used to be the one expected to prevent.